This is Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related, and today we got to round up all the info that has come to us over the past few days. We'll be talking about the potential leak screenshots, some terms of service and strings, the launch lineup, how Stadia improves the game GRID, a new GYLT trailer, but before getting into all of that, I want to talk about something that happened over the weekend you may have heard about. And it revolves around a popular YouTuber who I'm sure needs very little introduction, and that's Markiplier. So to summarize what happened here, he was hosting a live stream and he has two emotes on his channel. One is a red paddle and the other a green. He then asked for people to vote by using that emote so he could choose what to do in-game. And once people started doing that, YouTube's algorithm kicked in and started banning accounts that were doing it. And I'm not just talking about the YouTube accounts, but the outright Google account. Now, if you're wondering why I'm bringing this up, well, let's say you had a Stadia account attached to the same Gmail as your YouTube account, then you would have lost access to all that too. To be perfectly clear, they did fix this and correct it after Markiplier made this video. In fact, he's made an update video since then. Google clarified that they've reinstated all the banned accounts and they're working on fixing that issue. So really, all I wanted to do was bring this up to serve as a PSA for those of you wanting to use the same Gmail account for everything. I know that I'll be using a separate Gmail account exclusively for Stadia use just in case something were to go wrong again. Also, to be fair to Google here, this sort of thing happens on every other major platform. There's plenty of stories of people losing their entire accounts and digital purchases on both Xbox and PlayStation. So I wouldn't worry too much about this, but I did think it was important to bring up just so you know. Next up, let's start covering some of the terms of service things that have come up that people may be questioning. The one that seems to have gathered most of the attention is the following statement under restrictions. You may not use any stream ripping, stream capture, or similar software to record or create a copy of any content, even if no fee is charged, except where doing so would not constitute a copyright infringement. This statement had quite a few people worried, but that second part about copyright infringement would mean you're in the clear. On top of that, John Justice himself has already stated that for now, you can still be using your same setups to stream to get your stream overlays when playing on Stadia. Other important things that show up on the terms of service would include stuff like pre-orders being able to get cancelled anytime before launch. And when it comes to family sharing, it does describe that you can only run one instance at a time, so if you were hoping that it would work like the PlayStation setup, well, that's sadly not the case here. Next up, let's take a quick view at the paste bin about all the strings found within the Stadia app. Now, to be very honest, I'm not going to go through everything. There is a ton, and I mean an absolute ton of strings here, but I will put the link in the description below if you want to check it out yourself. Not only that, but there's been a post on Reddit that quickly organizes some of the more important things, as well as an article by 9to5Google that I'll link below as well. Interestingly enough, when it comes to searching the store through categories, Devolver Digital shows up as one of the publishers, even though they don't have a confirmed game for Stadia so far. Now, this shouldn't be too surprising. Devolver Digital's co-founder has already spoken very positively about Stadia in the past, and this pretty much confirms that we'll see some of their games come to Stadia. My guess would have to be Carrion. That's that really unique looking reverse horror game that has you playing as the monster rather than running away from it. But what's your best guess as to what game they'll bring over to Stadia? Be sure to let me know in the comments section below. Now, the second set of strings I think are worth talking about here have to do with data usage and resolution quality. It seems like you'll be able to choose on what type of balance you want out of your experience, be it if you want a balance between visual quality and data usage, or if you rather focus on just one or the other. Now, where it really gets interesting is that you can limit your data usage to 4.5 gigabytes an hour, but the visual quality will be capped at 720p. In comparison, Sony states that the PlayStation Now streaming service that only streams at 720p uses about 1 to 3 gigabytes of data per hour. I am curious to see why Stadia uses more. It could be due to some of the technology they're using behind it, or it could just be a safer number. Either way, I would expect the data used per hour to fluctuate heavily just like PlayStation Now does. Now, the last string I want to cover here is one that brings up a UI where you can request a refund. Now I am curious to find out whether or not this is just there for when you want to refund a pre-order, or if there's a refund system in place much like Steam. If it ends up working like Steam where you can refund something within 2 hours of play, that would be absolutely amazing. If there's one thing most platforms lack, be it PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo, it's a proper refund system. And considering that Stadia is an all-digital platform, I really hope they have a good one set in place. Anyways, I'm gonna leave the strings there for now as we move on to the next bit of news, but if you want to read the rest of them, the paste bin link will be in the description below, be sure to check it out. Now, while recording, some more news came in, and that's that the iOS Stadia app has officially launched, so if you're on Apple, be sure to go give it a download. As of right now, you can't really do anything with it as it'll just request an activation code, but I gotta admit, it's kinda nice to just see the app sitting there. November 19th seriously can't come soon enough. Next, let's take a look at that potentially leaked screenshot of Stadia's menu UI. As you can see, it highlights something called the Worm game, and it does have a pro tag next to it. Now, there's been a lot of debate whether or not this is fake or real, but I do have a feeling that this is actually a real leak. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to see that Worm game see the light of day. In fact, it may just be something for internal testing, but this screenshot certainly doesn't look fake to me. Well, there's that, and I may or may not have heard something about this being real, but that's pretty much all I can say. Just know that I do not have access to Stadia. Anyways, on to the next bit of news. The official launch lineup was released yesterday, but there seems to be a bit of confusion on what games are actually making it for launch. This is revolving around the Football Manager 2020 incident that I talked about in yesterday's video, so if you haven't seen it yet, be sure to check it out in the annotation above. So you may be wondering, why am I bringing it up in this video? Well, someone from the comments section in yesterday's video brought up a good point. Where's The Division 2? Not only that, but where's Doom 2016? Both of these titles aren't even slated for sometime in 2019. Now, what I'm about to say is a complete guess, but if I'm being honest, I do think it has a good chance of being true. I could totally see The Division 2 and Doom 2016 being Stadia Pro titles for December and January. After all, we know Ubisoft has an absolutely excellent partnership with Google, and they've been working with Stadia for a long time, as does id Software. In fact, Doom 2016 is the title that convinced most people that Stadia would work. Now, in Division 2's case, it could just be the fact that Ghost Recon Breakpoint is launching and Ubisoft doesn't want to launch two third-person shooters so close to each other. But it makes absolutely no sense that Doom 2016 isn't going to be on Stadia this year. After all, the way Google's talked about Doom 2016 being the title that changed everyone's mind, it should be there. Now, once again, just to be clear before I move on to the next bit of news, this is a complete guess. Next up, let's talk about the WCCF Tech article that's focused on GRID. This comes via interview with Mark Green, development director of GRID at Codemasters. Now, this interview heavily focuses around Stadia, and I'll be sure to link it in the description below if you want to read through it all, but there is one statement I really want to focus on. Mark Green stated the following when asked about what the main difference compared to developing for a console or PC was when compared to Stadia. Development on any new hardware is always equal parts exciting and interesting. Perhaps the area with the biggest difference was the streaming, but also the ability of Stadia to talk to other Stadia so quickly transformed some ideas around multiplayer. For example, developing a whole new mode for GRID Stadia which has 40 cars on track at the same time, something that just isn't possible with other hardware. This is very interesting to hear, as we've often heard that playing with other Stadia users is going to be comparable to playing on a LAN center. Not only that, but it's great to see another third-party title also have an exclusive feature that only Stadia can produce. Now, be sure to check out the full article. Once again, the link will be in the description below, but for now, let's move on to the last bit of news. And that's none other than GYLT's official launch trailer, and I have to say this one looks absolutely fantastic. I'll be picking it up day one. Considering it's the only Stadia exclusive game, you can definitely expect me to be reviewing it as soon as possible, and I cannot wait to give you my thoughts on it. From everything we've seen so far, the game's looking really good, and this official launch trailer definitely hyped me up, especially near toward the end. Oh, and by the way, shout out to Google for absolutely nailing that sound for the Stadia logo. It certainly reminds me of the good old days of the Dreamcast and PlayStation 1 sound. Anyways, that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out, and if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. And for today's end of video message, I'm gonna keep it short and simple. What Stadia Pro games do you think will be given to us for the months of December and January? I'm asking this simply because it just came into my mind that there are plenty of other games that we should be expecting this year but aren't getting. For example, The Crew 2 comes to mind, so give me your best guess. Also, for those who missed it in yesterday's video, GenerationStadia.com is now live, be sure to go check it out. Anyways, this has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. The Gen S community is over 2,400 strong and growing by the day, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.